Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely transform the way you tackle and write literary essays. Building a rock-solid argument is actually a whole lot like building a house. Think about it. If your foundation is shaky or just completely missing, the entire structure is going to collapse the second someone reads it. So, today, we're putting on our hard hats and stepping into the role of literary architects. We're going to master what I like to call the ultimate structural blueprint, the Peel method. Get ready because we're about to build literary arguments that are structurally perfect and absolutely impossible to tear down.
Here is our highly structured roadmap for today. Number 1, the summary trap. 2, anatomy of the Peel method. 3, a case study on Hemingway. 4, the power of analysis. And 5, perfecting the argument.
The summary trap. Okay, let's dive into this. We need to talk about the most common pitfall in literary analysis: building a house without a foundation. The golden rule here is absolutely strict. Do not just retell the plot. Look, during an exam or when you're staring at a blank page, it is so tempting to just summarize what happens to fill up space, right? But that is an absolute trap. Summarizing doesn't show any critical thinking skills. This quote right here should be your new compass. Every sentence should be analysis, not summary. Honestly, telling your grader what happens is pointless. They've already read the book. True analysis requires you to dig deep into the why and the how. Every time you write a sentence, you need to ask yourself, am I just explaining what happens, or am I explaining why it matters? That little shift in mindset, that's what changes everything.
Section 2. Anatomy of the Peel method.
So, what's the solution to the summary trap? Well, it's this ultimate structural blueprint. Now, you might have heard of Peel or Teal before. This is functionally identical. It's the secret to disciplined writing. It keeps every single body paragraph strictly focused on one core idea. It's basically the universally approved framework to give your critical voice some real muscle. Let's rapidly pace through these 4 exact steps so you can anchor them in your memory. First, the point. You clearly state your main argument in one sentence. Next, the evidence. You skillfully embed a short quote from the text. Then, the analysis. You explain the technique the author used and its effect. And finally, the link. You connect this whole idea straight back to your essay's central thesis. Point, evidence, analysis, link. It's the perfect rhythm for an unbeatable argument.
Section 3. Case study. Hemingway.
Okay, let's slow down a bit and actually apply this framework using Ernest Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants. We'll start with the foundation, the point, for our first paragraph. Hemingway shows conflict through the man's repeated attempts to control the woman's decisions. Boom. It's direct, it sets the stage, and notice it doesn't just retell the story.
Next, we lay down our evidence. We use this specific quote. It's really an awfully simple operation. It's not really an operation at all. See how we are targeting the exact moment the man repeats this specific phrase to make the procedure sound totally unimportant? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we unpack the analysis step. We aren't just saying, he repeats words. We're explaining that this repetition creates a hidden psychological pressure. Sure, his words seem calm on the surface, but underneath, they're suffocating. And this brilliantly illustrates Hemingway's famous iceberg theory, the idea that the real emotion and tension are submerged way below the surface of the dialogue.
And we wrap up the paragraph construction with the link. How does this connect the overarching theme? Well, this controlling dialogue reveals a massive, central power imbalance between the two characters. Full circle. We've got a solid, argued paragraph with zero unnecessary summary.
Section 4. The power of analysis.
This right here is where essays go from good to exceptional. Look at this contrast. On the left, we have the word please, normally just a simple, polite request, right? But on the right, we look at how the character Jig uses it at the end of the story. She repeats please 7 times in a row. By analyzing that extreme repetition, we see how the word literally transforms from politeness into a raw expression of deep emotional breakdown. She's not asking nicely anymore. She is desperately begging him to stop talking.
So our link for this second paragraph confirms the real tragedy of the story. Communication has completely broken down. They've reached a point where their conflict simply cannot be resolved by words anymore.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an even more nuanced concept, the unsaid. The unsaid is all about the things characters actively avoid saying and those heavy silences embedded right in their dialogue. Let's use this as the point for a third paragraph.
Let's walk through the evidence and analysis simultaneously here. The striking fact is that the characters never actually say abortion or baby. The topic is completely spoken around, never faced head-on. Why? Because avoiding specific words forces the reader to look at the emotional truth the unequal pressure Jig is facing. The conversation is just too painful to have honestly. That silence isn't just empty space, it symbolizes the larger failure of their entire relationship.
Section 5. Perfecting the argument.
By strictly following the architectural journey of the Peel method, we arrive at a really powerful conclusion. Hemingway proves that dialogue alone, both the spoken and the silent, carries the entire narrative weight. It's the equation of what they say, plus what they avoid, that gives us the full emotional weight of the story.
So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question. The Peel method isn't just some rigid formula, it's a meticulous blueprint for discovery. How will you use the Peel method to uncover the hidden depths and silences in your next reading? Take this framework, ditch the plot summary, and start revealing the true architecture of the texts you read. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.